I almost died giving birth to our daughter. 3 months later, after breastfeeding our baby back to sleep at 2 a.m., I stood outside the guest room listening to my husband and my best friend, my bridesmaid, making love. "Don't be too loud, you'll wake Ruby," he whispered. "She's too weak to notice." "She'll never know," she replied. I pushed the door open. My husband was on top of my best friend. "My name is Ruby, I'm 31 years old, and I live in Portland, Oregon. 2 years ago, I married Fred, a tech executive at MaxiTech Solutions. He was the regional manager, ambitious, confident, successful. We had what everyone called a perfect marriage. Beautiful wedding. Dream honeymoon in Santorini. A gorgeous craftsman house in the Pearl District. Then I got pregnant. The pregnancy nearly destroyed my body. I developed preeclampsia at 32 weeks. My blood pressure skyrocketed. The doctors said if we waited any longer, I might not make it. They performed an emergency C-section, and our daughter Jill came into the world 7 weeks early, weighing just 4 pounds. I survived. Barely. But recovery was brutal. The incision wouldn't heal properly. I couldn't lift anything heavier than my baby. Some nights, the pain was so intense I couldn't sleep. Fred seemed supportive at first, but I noticed him pulling away. He'd stay late at the office. He'd scroll through his phone instead of helping with Jill. He'd flinch when I asked him to hold her. That's when Celine offered to help. Celine had been my bridesmaid. We'd been friends since college. 10 years of shared secrets, late-night calls, celebrating each other's wins. She lived across Portland, in Beaverton, but said she could take a few months off her graphic design work to help me through those first exhausting months of motherhood. I was so grateful. I actually cried when she showed up with her suitcase. I should have seen the signs. I really should have. The way she'd laugh too hard at Fred's jokes. How she'd touch his arm when they talked. The private glances I'd catch between them. But I was drowning in exhaustion and pain, in the overwhelming fog of new motherhood. I told myself I was being paranoid. Celine was my friend. Fred was my husband. They were just getting along, helping me through this difficult time. I was so stupid. 3 months after Jill was born, on a Tuesday night in late September, I finally collapsed into bed around 11. Jill had been cluster feeding all evening, and I was beyond exhausted. My whole body ached. The incision site throbbed. I could barely keep my eyes open. 20 minutes later, Jill's screams jolted me awake. I dragged myself up, lifted her from the bassinet, and began nursing her in the dim glow of the night light. As she fed, I wondered where Fred and Celine were. The house was oddly quiet. Usually, one of them would at least check if I needed anything when Jill cried. After burping Jill and getting her back to sleep, I went looking for them. The living room was empty. Kitchen was dark. Fred wasn't in his home office. Then I heard it. At the end of the hallway, coming from the guest room where Celine was staying. Muffled sounds. Low voices. Something that made my stomach drop. I moved closer. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The guest room door was slightly ajar, and that's when I heard Fred's voice, barely a whisper. "Don't be too loud, you'll wake Ruby." And then Celine's response, breathless and shameless. "She's too weak to notice. She'll never know." The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. Hot tears streamed down my face before I could even process what I was hearing. My hands were shaking. Part of me wanted to run. Part of me needed to see. I pushed the door open. They were naked. Tangled together in the bed I'd helped Celine make up with fresh sheets just 3 days earlier. The lamp was on, casting everything in harsh, undeniable light. Celine saw me first. Her face crumpled immediately, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Ruby, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." But Fred, he didn't move, didn't cover himself, didn't even look surprised. He just stared at me with something cold in his eyes, something I'd never seen before. "I'm in love with Celine," he said. His voice was flat, matter of fact, like he was telling me he'd already eaten dinner. "There's nothing you can do about it." I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. "Ever since you got pregnant, you stopped being beautiful to me," he continued. Each word was a knife. "You've lost your spark." Everything suddenly went dark. I passed out. When I came to, I was on the floor in the hallway. My cheek was wet. Celine was standing over me with an empty water bottle, her hand shaking. "Ruby, please, I didn't mean." But Fred had already grabbed his clothes and stepped over me. Actually stepped over my body like I was a piece of furniture in his way. That was the moment I realized the man I'd married was gone. if he'd ever really existed at all. From that night forward, my life became unrecognizable. Fred and Celine didn't even try to hide it anymore. The next morning, I walked into my own living room to find Celine perched on Fred's lap, both of them laughing at something on TV. They didn't even look up when I entered. At night, the sounds from the guest room were deliberate, loud. They wanted me to hear. I'd lie in bed with Jill beside me, tears streaming silently down my face, listening to my husband with my former best friend. The guest room shared a wall with the master bedroom. They knew that. They knew exactly what they were doing. I called my parents. My mother is 58 and has been bedridden for 2 years with complications from diabetes. My father, 63, spends every day caring for her. I couldn't burden them with this. I couldn't even tell them the truth. My younger sister, Madison, was only 15, still in high school. I thought about asking her to come help with Jill, but I couldn't expose her to this. I couldn't let her see what my marriage had become. So I suffered in silence. For weeks, I'd feed Jill, change her, rock her to sleep, all while Fred and Celine acted like a couple in my house. They'd cook dinner together, shoulders touching as they worked. They'd whisper and giggle. They'd disappear into the guest room for hours, while I was left alone with a colicky infant and a body that still hadn't healed. Fred would come home from work and kiss Celine hello without even acknowledging me. She'd bring him a drink, massage his shoulders, play the perfect girlfriend while I was invisible. The crazy thing? Part of me still hoped it would end, that Fred would wake up, that Celine would feel guilty enough to leave, that this nightmare would somehow resolve itself. But it only got worse. Fred became more mean to me. He didn't even care that Jill was his child as well. I was all alone. Celine stopped being remorseful. Fred's arrogance had rubbed off on her. I was losing my mind. I needed help. I needed a way out. I needed strength. That strength eventually came from the most unexpected place. One morning in mid-October, I was scrolling through my phone while nursing Jill, trying to distract myself from the sounds coming from the guest room. That's when I saw the news story that changed everything. A tech CEO in Seattle had been caught cheating at a concert. Someone had filmed him kissing a woman who wasn't his wife. The video went viral. Within 48 hours, he'd lost his job, his marriage, and his reputation. The company's board forced him to resign. His wife filed for divorce and got everything. I read that article 3 times. Then I read the comments. Thousands of people supporting the wife, calling him disgusting, demanding accountability. Something shifted inside me. I realized that crying in my bedroom wasn't going to save me. Being a good wife wasn't going to fix this. Fred wasn't going to suddenly remember he had a daughter who needed him. Celine wasn't going to develop a conscience. If I was going to survive this, I had to fight back. But I didn't know how. I was exhausted, in pain, financially dependent on Fred. He made 6 figures at Maxitech. I'd been a part-time social media manager before Jill, but I'd stopped working when the pregnancy got complicated. I had maybe $3,000 in my personal account. He had everything else. For a week, I just observed. I watched them, studied their patterns. Fred would come home at 6. He'd spend an hour with Celine before even coming to check on Jill. They'd make dinner together, watch TV, then disappear into the guest room. I started recording things. Not video. I couldn't stomach pointing a camera at them. But audio. I'd leave my phone outside the guest room door, recording app running. I captured their conversations, their laughter, the sounds of them together. I recorded Fred's voice when he'd say cruel things to me. Like when I asked him to hold Jill so I could shower and he said, "That's what Celine is here for. You're her mother, figure it out." Or when I confronted him about the affair and he said, "What are you going to do about it? Leave. With what money? You have nothing without me." I started screenshotting text messages between them that I'd find on Fred's laptop when he left it open. Messages about me. "Ruby's crying again. She's so pathetic. I can't wait until we can be together openly." I was building something. I just didn't know what yet. Around this time, something changed in me. I stopped crying. Stopped begging Fred to end things with Celine. Stopped trying to reason with either of them. I became cold. Calm. Almost detached. Fred noticed. One night at dinner, he and Celine had cooked pasta while I fed Jill in the nursery. He looked at me with this smirk. "Pathetic," he said. "You think pretending not to care will change anything? You're too weak. You've always been too soft. You'll never survive without me." Celine giggled. Actually giggled. I just looked at him, didn't respond, took my plate to the sink and went back to the nursery. His words echoed in my head all night. You're too weak, too soft. You'll never survive without me. He was wrong, but he wouldn't know that until it was too late. The opportunity came on a Thursday night in early November. I was randomly tuning the radio looking for something to occupy my mind with. I couldn't sleep. Fred and Celine were in the guest room making love as usual and being loud about it. They wanted me to hear, wanted to humiliate me. I stumbled upon a popular late-night radio show in Portland, The Heartbreak Hotline with Marvel. Marvel's known for taking calls about relationship drama, giving advice, sometimes bringing on experts. But he's also known for exposing cheaters. People call in, tell their stories, and Marvel helps them confront their partners live on air. The show reaches about 50,000 listeners across Portland and the surrounding cities. It's also live-streamed in podcast, so the reach is even bigger. I'd listened to it dozens of times during those long nights with Jill. Two picked up my phone and dialed in. The line rang. Once. Twice. Then Marvel's voice. Heartbreak Hotline, you're on with Marvel. What's your name and what's your story? My voice was steady. Calm. Hi Marvel. My name is Ruby. My husband is cheating on me. With my best friend. In my house. Right now. I heard Marvel lean forward. Right now? As in this moment. Yes. They're in the guest room. They think I'm asleep. Ruby, I'm so sorry. Do you have proof? I took a breath. Hold on a second. I walked down the hallway. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. I could hear them through the door. Loud. Shameless. I held my phone up against the bedroom door. For 10 seconds, the entire radio audience listened. The moans were crystal clear. Unmistakable. I heard Marvel's sharp intake of breath. Ruby, are you okay? I'm about to be, I said. Then I pushed open the door. Fred and Celine jerked upright. The sheets tangled around them. Celine's eyes went wide. Fred's face twisted in rage. Get out, he shouted. I held up my phone. Put it on speaker. Fred, meet Marvel from the Heartbreak Hotline. You're live on radio. 50,000 people are listening. Why don't you tell them why you're cheating on your wife while she nurses your 3-month-old daughter? The color drained from his face. For one beautiful second, he was speechless. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. You're bluffing, he said, pulling Celine closer to him. You don't have the guts to expose me like that. You're a weak wife, too soft, too accommodating. I regret marrying you. You lost your spark after pregnancy. You're nothing without me. Without me, you and that baby starve. Ugly thing. My voice cracked as I cried. You're so mean and evil, Fred. How do you think I became successful? He was on a roll now, emboldened by his own arrogance. How do you think I became regional manager at Maxitech? By being a weak simp. You married me because of my achievements, Ruby. That's a lie, Fred. I shot back. I married you because I loved you and you know it. I was sobbing now, but I kept the phone steady. Well, you're right, he said, his voice dripping with disdain. You married me because you loved me. I married you because I wanted a woman who wouldn't challenge me, who'd just accept whatever I did. And look, I was right about you. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Marvel's voice, careful but clear. Fred, this is Marvel from the Heartbreak Hotline. Everything you just said was broadcast live to 50,000 listeners. Your full name, your employer, your admission of infidelity, and your verbal abuse of your wife. Do you have anything else you'd like to add? Fred's face went from confident to horrified in seconds. He scrambled for his phone, started pulling on clothes. Celine was crying, covering her face with the sheets. I walked out of the room, closed the door, put the phone back to my ear. I was crying helplessly. Marvel tried to calm me. Then I hung up. Within 30 minutes, the clip was online. The radio station had posted it to their social media. People were sharing it, commenting. The audio of Fred saying, "You're nothing without me," and "I wanted a woman who wouldn't challenge me," was being cut into short clips and spread across every platform. By morning, it had 1 million plays. By Friday afternoon, Fred's work email was flooded with complaints. People had looked up Maxitech Solutions, found his profile on the company website, and were demanding he be fired. The company's HR department called him in for an emergency meeting. I know because he came home white-faced and shaking, grabbed his laptop, and left without a word. By Saturday, the story had been picked up by local news outlets. Tech executive caught in viral cheating scandal. Wife exposes husband's affair live on radio. Fred's face was everywhere. Memes, comment sections, blog posts analyzing his behavior. His career was over. Monday morning, Maxitech Solutions released a statement. We were made aware of deeply concerning behavior by one of our regional managers. After an internal investigation, we have accepted his resignation, effective immediately. Maxitech does not tolerate the mistreatment of any individual, and we stand with victims of emotional abuse. Fred didn't resign. He was fired, but they let him save face with the resignation narrative. He came home that afternoon, slammed the door, found me in the nursery with Jill. You destroyed me, he hissed. You destroyed my entire career. Do you understand what you've done? I looked at him calmly. I'll have my say in court. His face twisted. You think you'll get anything? I'll make sure you end up with nothing. But he was wrong. So wrong. I'd already filed for divorce. My lawyer, a woman named Patricia Punk, who'd contacted me after hearing the radio broadcast and offered to take my case pro bono, was building an airtight case. The divorce proceedings started in early December. Patricia presented everything. The viral audio clip, the recordings I'd made of Fred's verbal abuse, screenshots of text messages, a timeline of the affair. But the radio broadcast was the star evidence. Fred's own words, his admission, his cruelty, all documented and heard by hundreds of thousands of people. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Whitmore, listened to the audio once. Her face grew harder with each word. Fred's lawyer tried to argue that the radio call was a violation of privacy, that I'd humiliated him publicly without consent. Judge Whitmore shut that down immediately. Your client was committing adultery in the marital home, verbalizing abusive statements to his postpartum wife, and showed no remorse even when confronted. The court finds no violation here. The wife was within her rights to seek help and expose infidelity. The ruling came down 2 weeks before Christmas. Full custody of Jill to me. Fred would get supervised visitation once a month, pending evaluation. The marital home was transferred to my name. All of it. He had 30 days to remove his belongings. Child support. $4,000 a month, non-negotiable, adjusted for inflation annually. Spousal support. $3,000 a month for 5 years, to allow me time to rebuild my career and recover from the trauma. And here's the part that made Fred's face go purple. I was awarded 30% of his stock options in Maxitech. Options he'd been granted before he was fired, that would vest over the next 3 years. Because of his very public behavior, because he'd caused reputational harm to me and psychological distress during a vulnerable postpartum period, the judge added punitive damages. $50,000 paid within 60 days. Fred left the courthouse looking like he'd aged 10 years. Celine had already fled Portland. The internet had torn her apart. Her graphic design clients dropped her. Her social media accounts were flooded with hate. She deleted everything and moved back to her hometown in Idaho. I never heard from her again. Fred tried to fight the ruling, filed an appeal. But his new lawyer, he couldn't afford his old one anymore, told him he had no grounds. The evidence was overwhelming. The audio was damning. He was lucky he wasn't facing criminal charges for emotional abuse. The appeal was denied. He paid. Every penny. I used the $50,000 to hire a postpartum doula, pay off medical bills from Jill's birth, and put the rest in a college fund for her. The house felt different after Fred's things were gone. Lighter, like I could finally breathe. Jill was 6 months old when I started rebuilding. I began freelancing again, social media management for small businesses. I could work from home, set my own hours, be present for Jill. But something else was growing inside me. A need to help other women who were going through what I'd experienced. I started a support group, Sisters in Strength. We met twice a month at a community center in Northeast Portland. It started with 5 women. Within 6 months, we had over 40 regular members. Women who'd been betrayed, abused, gaslit, told they were nothing without their partners. We shared stories, resources, legal advice, emotional support. The group got some local media attention. A reporter from the Oregonian wrote a profile on us. Then Portland Monthly. Then a local news station. One night, driving home to my daughter, I finally felt it. Peace. Not happiness, not yet. But peace. The knowledge that I'd fought for myself and won. That I'd protected Jill from growing up in a home where her mother was disrespected. That I'd shown her, even before she was old enough to understand, that women don't have to accept cruelty. Fred never recovered. His career in tech was finished. No company would touch him after the scandal. Last I heard, he was working in sales for a mid-level insurance company, making maybe a third of what he used to. He sees Jill once a month. Supervised visits at a facility. He's awkward with her. Uncomfortable. Like he doesn't know how to be a father without someone there to do the real work. She doesn't know him. She lights up when my father visits. She reaches for my mother. But Fred is a stranger to her. Sometimes I feel sad about that. Not for Fred. For Jill. Every child deserves a father who chooses to be present. But then I remember. She deserves better than a father who stepped over her mother's body. Who told her mother she was nothing. Who chose cruelty over compassion. She is better. She has me. She has my parents. She has Madison, who's 18 now and obsessed with being an aunt. She has the women from Sisters in Strength who've become like family. A year after the divorce, I was invited to speak at a women's conference in Seattle. 300 women. I told my story, shared what I'd learned, talked about resilience and boundaries and self-respect. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. Women came up to me afterward, crying, hugging me, thanking me for giving them courage. One woman, maybe in her 50s, squeezed my hand and said, "I've been married for 30 years to a man who treats me like you were treated. Tomorrow, I'm calling a lawyer." That moment, that was when I knew. The worst thing that ever happened to me had become my purpose. Today, Jill is 2 years old. She's brilliant, funny, fearless. The house is ours. Really ours. I painted the guest room where Fred and Celine carried on their affair. Made it into a playroom for Jill. Bright yellow walls. Bookshelves. A little reading nook. Every painful memory has been replaced with joy. I'm dating again. Slowly. Carefully. A man named Thomas who owns a bookstore in Hawthorne. He knows my story. He's patient. Kind. Good with Jill. I don't know if it will turn into something serious. But I know I'm not the same woman who married Fred. I'm not soft in the way he meant. I'm not weak. I'm strong because I survived. I'm powerful because I fought back. I'm whole because I chose myself. I'm a mother, an advocate, a survivor, a woman who knows her worth. And Fred, he's just a cautionary tale. A reminder to women everywhere that the loudest man in the room is often the most fragile. That cruelty is weakness pretending to be strength. That the moment you stop accepting disrespect is the moment everything changes. That night changed my life. Not because of what Fred did to me, but because of what I chose to do about it. I chose truth over silence, action over acceptance, dignity over desperation, and I'd make the same choice again, every single time.